Words are small, just sound, just letters, yet they have the power to shape nations, to unite people, or tear them apart. Think about this. Wars have started with words. An entire group of people have been excluded with words. And even today, the language you use can decide whether someone feels like they belong or like they will forever remain an outsider. Today, I want to share with you 5 powerful words that further divide us. Words that you've heard before, words that divide us. And I want to talk about why they matter, especially here in Germany, and why so many foreigners and people with migration stories hear this word every single day. So let's dive in. Now, the first word is people of color. Now, I hate this word so much, but just hear me out. I get the mindset behind this word. This word was created to create, to create solidarity, for the people that are marginalized to unite. That's the whole idea of this word. However, this word also has its own shortcomings. It has its own problem. Because when we say people of color, we define people by what they are not white. You get the gist. I don't know when white stop being a color, but that's beside the point. Just imagine a Nigerian or someone from Japan, or a Vietnamese, or an Arab. People from different walks of life, different experiences, different perspective, different approach to life, different culture, lumped into a box. People of color. Because what that does is it creates a us versus them mentality. That's how division starts. So what starts as solidarity can also be used as a weapon to divide us. The second one is third world. Now, this one is, I don't know who came up with this word, but let me give you guys like a background story. This particular word is heavy in history. Now, if you guys remember the Cold War, of course, the war between America and the Soviet Union, or let me say the West and the Soviet Union. Now, the third world was coined in such a way that countries that were not involved in this war, they were regarded as the third world. That was the whole concept. That's the whole idea of the third world. So it was a way of showing, or it was a way of separating countries that were not involved in the war with countries that were involved in the war, the West and the Soviet Union, and then others. That was the whole idea of the third world. But today, nowadays, especially the media, I don't know why they find a way to divide us. They carefully choose some words that further divide us. Nowadays, when you hear third world, what comes to your mind is always poor, less advanced countries, and this dismisses an entire nation, entire group of people with different experience, this dismisses everything with just a broad stroke. Third world country or third world people. Just imagine for 1 second a medical doctor from, let's say, maybe Ghana comes to Germany, to practice medicine, coming with the mindset that is coming here to add to the economy, to bring in his expertise from his country to Germany, only for him or her to be told that he or she is from a third world country. Like, do you know how insulting that would be? In short, that's not only insulting, that's dehumanizing. And these are words that, if we are not careful, they further cause all this division amongst us. And again, I'm going to blame the media, because they carefully choose these words. They know what they are doing. They love this divide and conquer. They carefully choose this word just to divide us. Now, the next word is Ausländer, which also means foreigner, and that's the English word for Ausländer. Now, on surface, Ausländer is a very neutral word. It means someone from another country. There's no problem with it, right? That's very, very cool. But in reality, that particular word builds a bridge, an invisible bridge between people, and it becomes a permanent label. Because, for example, let's say a child that was born in Germany to maybe Arab parents, he speaks German fluently. This is all what the child knows. He or she doesn't know any other place than Germany. But just because the person doesn't look German enough, that child is regarded as an Ausländer, or can be regarded as an Ausländer. And this happens more times than you guys know. How do I know this? Because I'm a foreigner. So I hear this every day. So I know what I'm talking about. Because what this does is a subtle way of telling that child or that particular person that you don't belong here and you will never belong here. So just let that sink in for 1 second. Just let it sink in. Because this is not about geography now. But this word builds an invisible wall in the mind of people. And again, it forms this us versus them mentality. And the next word is immigrant. Of course, immigrant is factual. It means movement, people moving from one place to another. And again, on face value, there's absolutely nothing wrong with this word. It's okay to use the word immigrant. However, again, in reality, this word has been used to weaponize people. Yes, this word has been used as a weapon, to further divide us. Again, going back to the media. They carefully choose words that divide us. And the funny thing is, in our daily life, in reality, the word immigrant, it carries its own stereotypes. For example, I'm asking you this question. If you hear the word immigrant, what comes to your mind? I don't think you are thinking about a doctor or a scientist. No. What comes to your mind is someone that's either suffering, someone that is poor, someone that is committing crime, the negative stereotype. That's what comes to your mind most times when you hear the word immigrant on TV or in people's mind. Exactly, that's what happens. And is that fair? Absolutely not. Why do you think that when white people come to places like Africa or maybe Asia, for example, the media calls them what? Expats? Why do you think they carefully choose those words? Why don't they call them immigrants? Why don't they call them foreigners? They call them expats. Why? Because when you hear expats, what comes to your head? Someone that's an expert in a particular field, a scientist or a doctor or an accountant or someone that is rich or someone that is doing well off. That's what comes to your mind when you hear the word expert. Those words are carefully chosen. Why? Because they understand the power of words. Because the media, they are not stupid. They know that the word you use is powerful, and they coin this word carefully chosen. Why? Because like I said, the words they use are very, very powerful. They understand the psychology of human. They know that when you repeat words, a certain word over time, it forms a certain perception about a group of people. They understand this, and this is why they carefully choose these words. So you can have a white person who is a doctor traveling to maybe Nigeria, is regarded as an expert, and you can have a Nigerian, a black person traveling to Germany, and then the person is called what? An immigrant. The same job, the same profession, different skin color, different words. Now, do you get the picture I'm trying to paint now? So you see how powerful the words we use on a daily basis. You see how powerful these words are. And the funny thing is, these words shaping people's perception, and it shapes their reality. And if we are not careful, these words will further divide us. Because why, like I said, is one person with the same profession called an expert, and another person with the same profession is called an immigrant. Why? And lastly, minority. Now, to be called minority is to be reminded again and again that you are small, or you are few, or you are inferior, or you don't belong to that place. Do you understand? And of course, I understand numbers are just statistics. I get it. But we're talking about human being here. Humans are not numbers. Humans are people. We're talking about people here. Your neighbor, your colleague, your classmates, they are all human beings. So when we use the word, minority and majority, what this does is it builds a hierarchy. It makes the majority become the norm and the minority become an exception. Do you get it? And what this does is it creates this superiority and inferiority mindset. You might not know it, but subconsciously, this is what happens when we use words like this. Now, then I know some of you are asking me, okay, now that we know the problem, so Dre, what do we do? Do we throw away these words? Do we abandon them? Do we forget them? No, that's not the purpose of this video. The purpose of this video is for us to understand that the words we use carry a lot of weight, and these words can be weaponized if we are not careful. It's about empathy. It's about understanding that we need to treat ourselves as human. We need to see ourselves as humans before label. So instead, for example, instead of using the word third world, why don't we call them the global south? The same way we call the west here the global west. Why don't we call those people from those places the global south? Why do we have to label third world, first world, second world? Why? This creates hierarchy. So when we replace words like third world countries with global south, for example, that creates a level of equality in the minds of people. Instead of calling people Ausländer, why don't you call them internationals? You see now, when you use words like that, now the psychology is different. Now you see people differently. Instead of a foreigner or an Ausländer, why don't you call them internationals? Or people of color, why don't we call them according to their ethnicity or according to their identity? Instead of people of color, call them Nigerian, call them Ghanaian, call them Japanese, call them Chinese, call them Vietnamese. Why do we have to label people into boxes? Why? Why don't we want to respect people's identity? But when we replace these words that put people into box, when we replace them with words that show true equality, true solidarity, it changes our mindset. And that's the whole point of this video. The point of this video is not to point fingers at anyone, but it's to shed light to the problem. It's to shed light to the divisive mechanism that we have in our society, especially the media, how the media uses words to further divide us. We don't need to be divided. I know for some people, words are just words, but for others, it's a chain. The words we use are chain for others. For example, a child that was born in Germany, he knows no other place. It's not his fault that he was born in Germany. But that same child, just because he was born to an Arab parent or an African parent or parents from a completely different country, that child can be labeled as an Ausländer. Even though he speaks German fluently, he was born in Germany, just like a German too. But that child can be labeled as an Ausländer. And when the child grows up with this mindset, he doesn't see himself as or herself as if he belongs into that country. But when a professional that came from another country, instead of him being introduced as a colleague, is introduced as a minority hire. These are words that divide us. Yes, it happens on a daily basis, more than you guys know. Or when someone's homeland is being dismissed as a third world, it's infuriating, it's insulting, it's degrading. So like I said, the purpose of this video is for us to understand that the words that we choose to use on a daily basis carries weight. And to you, it might just be words, but to someone else, it might be a chain. So let's learn to speak with empathy. I know that we cannot change the past. I understand it. But we can choose the right words today. We can change today for a better future tomorrow. So I'm going to leave you with a question. The words that you choose to use on a daily basis, do they build walls or do they open doors? Let me know what you think in the comments below. And I'll see you guys in the next one. I'm out.